exactly want to say, guys.
But so I was going to say, like someone that was non-technical, as I think it's fair to classify you as, like doing those blogs or whatnot. I think if it was on WordPress or any blogger site, the technology would be completely different than I think if you were building an app at that point. I mean, if that you and I met in 2012, and 2012, and then I think you built that first app not too long after. And so I don't know that the apps, like the iPhone had just launched, like 5 years prior. I don't think the App Store was even like that big of a thing quite yet. It was getting there. So how did you decide to do this project, to approach this person? What was the catalyst that started you down this road, that you weren't really equipped for at the time?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so at the time it was, so I remember it was the iPhone. I think the iPhone first came out, and it didn't have an app store. It was completely different to what we have now. It took a couple of iterations. I think it was until the iPhone 3GS, I think, maybe before we got the first app store.
Right.
I think, as with a lot of these things, there's kind of a gold rush in the beginning when these new platforms are taking off. If you're one of the first people on TikTok or one of the first people on Instagram, you can really benefit from those kind of early days where there isn't that much content to go around, and you're kind of like, it's a lot easier to be noticed. So we really sort of capitalized on being early on the App Store. But how it came together was, so it was in that, so I was running the bike blog, and I was actually approached I was running the bike blog, and we decided that, okay, we want to do a bike maintenance product, something that helps people maintain their bike. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, this would be an amazing thing to have on your phone with you as you're going around. And, this is very early days. There's probably only 10,000 apps in the App Store at the time. So it's very, very early days. And I was like, yeah, but this would make perfect sense on this new iPhone thing that's just come out. So I reached out to a couple of developers, and we ended up building this app called Bike Doctor that would teach you how to maintain your bike. And so that was kind of my first entry into the App Store. So the journey was basically, I had this bike blog. I had an audience that was interested in what I was writing about through the bike blog. I asked them what stuff would make their lives better, essentially. And one of the product ideas that came out of that was the bike maintenance guide. So that was really the first app that we launched. And then I got into this entrepreneur group as well. I was interviewed about what I was doing with the bike blog from the founder of this entrepreneur group, the Frontier Club. And through that, I went to one of their meetups, which was in Canada. And there I met the person that we ended up doing the Caveman Feast app with. So the reason that kind of connection happened there was I'd already created one app with Bike Doctor, and it made a lot of sense in my head that, well, of course, if you've got bike maintenance, step-by-step bike maintenance instructions, it's not really all that different to have step-by-step cooking instructions. So I approached him, Abel, at the time was who was running the website, and I approached him and said, you should really turn your blog, the recipes you have on your blog, into an app. I've seen some success with what I've been doing with Bike Doctor. And he was kind of interested, and he said to me that he was like, yeah, I'd love to do that, but I'm too busy at the moment. How about we team up and do it together? So I was like, okay, great. So, suddenly I was running an app company. So that's what I mean by it kind of happened by chance. But I guess it goes to show there's a lot of value in, in sort of the kind of connections that you make. And it's amazing how one connection can lead to another, which I guess is what we'll talk about a little bit later on in the podcast.
Right. Yeah, because I think it's a big thing to emphasize how important it is to just go and do something. Like the amazing thing is, like, once you have something that you're creating, that you're birthing into this world, so to speak, is that, like, you'll meet so many other people along the way, just trying to solve your own problems, like to find a developer, to decide how do I make these recipes, how do I explain how to, fix your bike or whatever. And then, like you said, like the force multiplier is that when you're joining a like-minded group of entrepreneurs or et cetera, people that are on their own journey, and then most entrepreneurs I know are happy to help other entrepreneurs. So I didn't know, I totally forgot about Bike Doctor. And so like finding developers and getting that up and running, was that a big challenge, like that learning curve? Because I don't believe you graduated in comp sci. There was nothing, like you really just kind of picked this up from scratch and just kind of like learned along the way. Is that accurate?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So it was really, I didn't have any expertise. I had done a little bit of programming at university, but absolutely nothing to the level that would have been needed to create an app. And so, it was by chance, actually. It was somebody that contacted me through the bike blog that they'd created an app, and they were asking me if I could promote it through the bike blog. And I said, of course, happy to help you out. And I said, oh, by the way, are you interested in taking on any freelance projects? Because I had this idea for this app called Bike Doctor. And so, again, it was kind of by chance, but I guess sort of, like you say, so sometimes it's just about pursuing those interests and sort of seeing where it will take you. And that's how I ended up there. But absolutely not. I didn't have any expertise in like running an app company or marketing or hiring or anything like that. It was all from scratch. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's really great. What did you find to be the hardest transition when you were going through and building these apps? What was the hardest skill to build? Because now I think you've been doing Meal Prep Pro and the Fitman Cook app for quite a period of time, and I know you've had several updates that have been really successful and all these things. But what has been the hardest part to learn?
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like when you're talking about your journey starting out with this stuff, I feel like this is normally the point where someone goes, anyway, so I had this idea and I went to my dad and he gave me $500,000.
And it fixed everything.
So sadly that did not happen.
Your dad's not taking your calls now. He's on the beach and he's like, no, I'm done with this business stuff. Forget it.
So what's the hardest thing? I guess it was just kind of constantly sort of evolving as things are changing. I think that the interesting thing has always been, I think I entered business with this naive thought that what I was doing would like scale on top, like one thing would kind of scale on top of the other, and it would be an unlimited, like linear progression upwards, basically.
Right.
Like the
good one. Yeah.
So, with the bike blog, I always thought to myself, okay, I've written, say, 1,000 blog posts, and I'm making $2,000 a month. Hey, when I have, 2,000 blog posts, I'm going to be making twice that, So it's, I think you started out with that quite naive view. And I think it's similar way with the apps. There was this quite naive view that was kind of like, okay, cool, we've got one app that works. Like, let's just go out there and just team up with loads of recipe writers and just create loads and loads of apps. But obviously, while you're busy creating the other one, your original app, the sales are starting to go down. So it's this kind of difficulty in how do you keep scaling something when, the bottom of it basically keeps coming down. So yeah, it's quite an interesting challenge. I think that's what sort of, and that was the initial idea was, okay, let's just go team up with 100 different recipe writers and create 100 different recipe apps. But in reality, like most of them were just not interested in doing a recipe app. They're like, who the hell is this person that's emailing me about doing a recipe?
Right.
I'm interested.
That's interesting.